Alright, today I'm gonna record a video for the in-depth guide to my Marohi Vaal Earthquake character, Juggernaut. Let's start the video with first a showcase of running a Minotaur's map. I think this is the best way to estimate the clear speed and the potential boss damage. I'll run an unidentified Minotaur. I would not be doing the affliction just for the sake of seeing the damage, how much damage looks like on a regular non-afflicted guardian. Since even if we do in POE, what we see is not the DPS but the damage per hit. And the hit damage of Earthquake actually scales with how fast you move. I will not stop for alpha. Right, so normally when I map, I would use 1 or 2 Warcries only for the intimidating cry, so I'm guaranteed to have double damage. And also the seismic cry for some extra AoE, which is nice. Okay, we have an orc here. And a shrine. Yeah, I'll still be picking up the loot, so it's more realistic on the mapping speed. Normally, you can see sometimes, even if I don't have the Vaal Earthquake active, just kill this one, I still kills the monster around me. That is because I have a Vengeance setup. When I'm surrounded by enemies and they hit me, I proc the Vengeance, and mostly for curse, for applying a curse to the enemy, but it still deals enough damage to just kill the normal enemies. Not even sure which one I'm taking, I just click it. Right. Let me try to stand in here. You see I am very tanky. I do not take any damage from that explosion whatsoever. This showcase is on a Mageblood version. I want to show a little bit here. I do have the Flask, but all of them are very tanky mods. I'm not focusing on speed, just trying to be as tanky as possible with this character. So that is why. Okay, on bosses I do want to pop all the Warcries, and I just walk around the boss like this. Okay, when I'm out of the Vaal Earthquake, I will pop the Warcries again and move again. Right? Whatever he does to me, you know, this is not a build that's focusing on dealing a lot of single target damage. So yeah, it basically takes a little bit more than two Vaal Earthquake to kill him. It should take 2 if you don't get slow by the columns here. Yeah, that's it. That's the showcase. Now let's come to the build guide. So this is in fact a PowerPoint. I see that there's a meme in the community, but not a meme, but a reality, that POE is not separated from Excel. So we have the part of Excel meme. So I think why not part of PowerPoint? So here is my in-depth guide for Marohi Erqi Vaal Earthquake. A little bit about the build. It is a walking simulator pretty much, even though once in a while you have to stop and recast the Vaal Earthquake. It is like once every 12 seconds by default. on the Vaal Earthquake. You can scale the duration of the Vaal Earthquake itself if you want to focus on just running more and less stopping and casting the Earthquake. It is very tanky, very tanky. As you can see in the demonstration, I barely take any damage. The Mageblood is a very recent item that I have and just put into the build for this for the previous showcase I just did in the Minotaur's map. However, I do have another video recorded for a non-Mageblood version. I was using an Arn's Anguish, which is the belt that turned your endurance charge into brutal charges for more damage. That belt is like 10C or something, very cheap. So I've been using that for most of the lifetime of this character. The Mageblood is obviously nicer, but it is something high-end. You don't need to care about if you cannot afford it. If you can afford it, obviously, it's no-brainer. This is a Quinn certified build. For obvious reason, we are very tanky boy, and we deal damage. Obviously, with the level of damage you just see on the showcase, you will not have any problem with the bosses on the map. Sometimes the tanky rares might take a while, but in the map, if you juiced it well, then you don't need to worry about that, since you do have the Chieftain Explosion, and I will explain in details in a further part of the guide. So clearing is good. Boss damage is just enough, not uber viable. I don't think so, even though probably you can stand in uber and face tank a lot of things, not everything but a lot of things, but I would not recommend to use this kind of build for uber bosses. It is a full unique build. Every single gear slot of my current character is a unique, which is actually easier to follow for newer people, and it also makes the budget kind of fixed, in a sense, where the uniques they have fixed stat, right? So you don't need to rely on any rare items. No crafting or anything involved. It should be easier to approach if you are a new player. And for a new player, this also you can start with a One Divine, and there's also a POE link in here, but I'll put the link in the description of the video so you can click it easier. I just put it here on the screen for reference. Alright, from now on, from this slide, I want to mention that we are always on dark mode. Your screen will mostly be black, so it's easier on the eye, since we play POE and we are exposed to too much flashes, explosion. It hurts. It hurts. Trust me. So yeah, let's start with the intro. So this is a mapping build. It focuses on being tanky again. You have the right to brag about playing melee in this modern POE day, where melee is pretty much a meme itself. You can avoid no map mods, no regen, no problem, no leech, no problem, reflect, no problem, any curses, no problem, because you have 100% reduced effect of curses. Yeah, and yeah, very tanky. I have to repeat this one. Since I start using the setup with the Arn's Anguish, I've died once, maybe twice, to some random bullshit mobs, map mods that just reduce my maximum resistance to almost nothing, because they stack with the altar that I take. But yeah, you won't be dying a lot in this build, so it's good for you if you want to push a character to a high level, or if you are a hardcore player. This kind of build is good for hardcore. If you're better at the game than me, mechanically, you won't die with this. I just don't pay attention to most of the things on the map. That is also one reason why I want to make this build. It has just enough damage, as you just see, to not be a complete Z DPS build. It can do all the regular bosses. I did it, but do not try Ubers. Right? Again, do not try Ubers. If you go to Ubers, you can go ahead and rewatch the the DM clips where he first got to POE and play his Shield Crush character. Is very tanky, but he deals like 300k DPS or something, which doesn't even make the Ubers or make the bosses lose any HP. This build, however, it had a few millions, or maybe a little bit more than 3 to 4 millions with the current setup. It's hard to actually calculate correctly because of the Vaal Earthquake mechanic and how it interact with movement speed. But from what I see in the Guardian maps and just the feel when I play the character, it probably have that much damage. And also, I choose to have a tanky character as a Juggernaut, but this playstyle can totally be changed into a damage focused playstyle with like a Slayer or an Assassins very easily. You scale crit and you convert your damage to elemental, and you have a lot of damage. It is totally possible. However, in this guide and in this showcase, I am doing a tanky version. Here are all the talking points that I will be cover in this video. First of all is the budget, then leveling, some tips and tricks, some guidance on leveling. This is only for new players. Ascendancy, Wildwood Ascendancy, skill tree, Pantheon, all the gear slots. Each one will have their own section. Unique jewels, the rare jewels and the cluster jewel that you want to use, the charm and the that which was taken jewel, which basically is a 2 charms without the restriction on what mod you can combo with each other, the gems and flasks, the Warcry's mechanic, other mechanics and interaction that is used in the build, the defensive layers, the low budget version, how cheap you can actually start playing the build, the possible upgrades and crits, because why not, how to go crit, and last but not least, a section of selling out. I mean outro. So we get to the budget. First of all, the recommended budget for to have the play style of Vaal Earthquake, to have pretty much 100% uptime on Earthquake, I would say is at least 20 divine, mostly because you are required to have a Hateforge. Hateforge is an item that last league is over 100 divine. However, this league it is much cheaper. I bought one 2 days ago to start playing this character for 11 divine. Right now I am not entirely sure the price, but last time I checked yesterday before I go to sleep, it is only 12 to 13 divines, which is very cheap for what it used to be. Lowest possible budget if you are stubborn and you want to start playing with Marohi is 1 divine, and I will explain in details in the low budget section. The lowest budget, if you want to play a smooth build with Cyclone Shockwave and Vaal Earthquake, is probably around about 10 divines, where you have all the 6 links, both the 6 links on your chest and your weapon, and also some corruption just to optimize the number of the endurance charge that you have, and nice charms with 10 divine. So basically 10 divine plus a little bit more than 10 divines for the Hateforge, and you have the recommended budget here. The current character setup showcased in the video, which is not, which, to be clear, I have to go disclaimer here that it is not the showcase that I do on this video, but on the showcase video. I put the link of the showcase video down in the description. It was 60 divine on the character, and it has a double corrupt ring, which is a hurt-bound loop with both immune to poison and immune to bleed. It is the only ring in this league, the only hurt-bound loop in this league that have those 2 corruptions, so I'm not even sure what price it is. I bought it for 1 divine earlier because I think it's cool, and now I figure out one way to use it in this build. But realistically, you just want to have a 1 good corruption in case of like immune to poison or immune to bleed. Either of those on the ring, it would be great, right? It would not be too expensive, probably 1 divine something. The 60 divine budget here is with the Hateforge for 10 divine. The weapon that I have is actually corrupted with an extra link of Fortify, so it's around 10 divine as well, so that's already 20. The Ralakesh boots, I have a +1 endurance charge corruption, so that by itself is 20 divine, so we are already at 40. So and then we have the ring, which is 15 divine with 1 maximum endurance charge and 1% movement speed per endurance charge. Those are the expensive stuff that are not, you know, build defining. You don't need them to work, to have the build working, but it is nice to have them. So it is those are the upgrade from the 20 divines recommended budget over here. The absolute min-max setup is this character here, 60 divine here, plus a Mageblood, which actually I wrote this line before I got a Mageblood, but right now I got it, and yeah, Mageblood, it just feels better. You either can be more tanky, or you can have more damage and movement speed, and I chose to test out with more tankiness right now. I may swap the Flask to be faster and see how I feel. It probably will feel better because I'm tanky enough for just general mapping, with or without juices. And also the absolute min max obviously will have all the double corruption you need, so it is very expensive. I'm not even sure how to estimate how much it is, but I'm working with what I can get, and pretty much I think I will not spend any further money in the build with the Juggernaut beside the Mageblood that I already got. The double corruption is not realistic. Okay, a little bit about leveling. If you already know how to do this, you can skip this part. I will put the timestamp on the video, so you can skip this part if you don't think it's necessary for you. But basically I will try to go quickly through this. You go with Splitting Steel from level 1, and then you switch to Sunder with any two-handed weapon that you find with the most amount of damage from level 12. You play basically with Sunder, and maybe 1 or 2 Warcry you pick up for Intimidating Cry and Rallying Cry. They increase the damage, and you can use them for bosses for extra damage. Normally with Sunder and maybe Hero of Ash, you pick up in Act 2. With just one Sunder, you will always clear pack while leveling. So it's just very simple and straightforward. Personally, at level 38, where I can have the access to cast while channeling, I would switch any melee character into the General's Cry setup. So General's Cry, you need to have two setups for it to work. First is the Cyclone, cast while channeling, and Desecrate, a 3-link to create corpses. And then you have another setup with General's Cry. You link it to any slam skill or any skill that works with your weapon, and you will summon. You have a call to arm keystone, which is really very close to Marauder. It's very easy to take. Make your Warcry instant. You will have your Warcry on left click. And basically, you always hold on the movement button, which is your left click. So your Warcry, your General's Cry cast on cooldown. And it will summon the Mirage Ancestor thingy. You know, it will summon a General who use the skill, the linked skill for you. It will deal a ton of damage. Very good coverage. Very automated playstyle. Very nice, very smooth. So I would recommend you to try that out. That is my go-to. But I'm not sure if it's the quickest way, or you can just use Cyclone and Shockwave, right? So the General's Cry and the Cyclone Shockwave, either one of those are both actually very good for Marohi Erqi as a slow weapon, but very high damage. So yeah, you can choose to use them until maps and also in early maps. It only depends on your preference. It doesn't matter which one is. Both is very good, very smooth, very spin win playstyle, and you don't need to care about a lot of things. The Cyclone, you will need to solve the mana a little bit, maybe with the ring with reduce cost of channeling skill. And one note for the General's Cry playstyle, that you should take the Warcry wheel around the Marauder. Right? Oh wait, sorry, 1 second. I will break out of this map and probably go to town, so you don't have to hear the sound of my minions dying constantly. Right? My computer is quite slow, so yes, 1 second. Right. I try to keep the game open because I want to show things like this as well. This wheel, Deep Breath, I would recommend you to go ahead, 3 points here, and take these if you play with General's Cry and also Call to Arm. Right. 2 things if you want to play General's Cry. You can even play it as an endgame version. Is very good. Right, so also one more thing, that this is just a very rough suggestion for leveling. There is a lot of much better, more detailed, more professional leveling guides for all the classes. So please go ahead and check them out in YouTube. My personal preference is I like the video of Zizaran and Tai Killer, where they explain the tips and trick and how to level fast with every character in the game, every archetype. And this is the link to the video. I will make sure to put this link in the video description as well, so you can find it quickly. You don't have to actually search for it, just click on the link. If you want yourself, just search for POE quick leveling guide for whichever class that you want. You'll probably find something that is very detailed. Right. Now we actually get to the character, to the build. First is the Ascendancy. The Ascendancy I chose to be tanky is Juggernaut. It can be a chieftain, but I don't want to be a chieftain since chieftain doesn't actually synergize that well with slam skill. With Vaal Slam, to be specific. So I think Juggernaut is the best option to be tanky in this case. The order of the Ascendancy node that we are going to take is first Unflinching for 1 extra maximum endurance charge, and basically you always have your endurance charge while mapping. It has 1 endurance charge per second if you've been hit recently, and also chance to gain endurance charge when you are hit. So and also chance to gain maximum endurance charge instead of just 1. So pretty much always you will have a maximum endurance charge. In my case, I even have a self-damage setup, so that is 100% uptime even in my hideout. The second point we'll take here is Unyielding. Unyielding gives you damage and AoE scaling per endurance charge, which is very nice for the stage that we are in while we do the second lap, probably around level 55 to 60 something. You have more AoE, more damage. That is very nice. Third one is Unrelenting. This will give you more defensive based on your endurance charge, including chaos resistant. Very nice, just very comfortable. And then last but not least, we take Unbreakable, which is the notable over here. It is very tanky notable. It double the armor on your body armor, which we use Brass Dome, the highest armor body armor in the game. But more importantly, it has 8% of your armor applies to the elemental damage taken from hits. So you have just way too much mitigation for elemental damage. So you are less afraid of map mods like minus max resistance. Basically, I just don't want to die. I want to push the higher level with the character. Right, Wildwood Ascendancy. My apology, this image is not very high resolution. Oops. But the Wildwood is very straightforward. We take the Charm Ascendancy, the Primalist. So the first one is obviously the Ass Pocket, the extra backpack. And then 3 charms. Very straightforward. Everyone do this on almost every single build in this league. Probably like 99.99%. Except for some niche case they take other ones, but mostly we are all for the charm. And I will explain this in the later section about charms. Skill tree. So the skill tree have 3 parts I want to mention. First is the keystone. We have Divine Shield, Resolute Technique, Unwavering Stance. What they do, let's go into the game and see. So Unwavering Stance, so you cannot be stunned, cannot evade is not a downside because we do not have any evasion anyway, so this is just a plus. Resolute Technique, this is to deal with the low amount of accuracy rating of Marohi's Erqi. This is the easiest way to deal with Marohi's downside since it is just 1 point on the tree where we are going already anyway. And also I take Divine Shield because I have a lot of mitigation for physical, so I will always have these 3% of physical damage prevented from hit, recently regenerated as energy shield per second. This is just an extra layer of just constantly recharging your energy shield, and when you take damage it is a little bit more effective HP. I only have 21 energy shield in this case. If you do not have any energy shield, which means the boots here, you may use something else with no energy shield, then feel free to remove this point and put somewhere else. It's something I think is quite nice, but it's not entirely too necessary. The skill tree, the pathing, this is the path of building POB pathing, but in the game it looks like this. So the order is we go here, grab the life, we go here, we grab this early for some leech and some damage early on, which is very nice. Then I normally like to go down to this over here and I grab the call to arm early, so I can have a Warcry on my left click, either endurance or intimidating. It depend on what, which you want. You want damage, you go intimidating cry. Very nice. Also for leveling early, if you decide to use Warcry, I will also take this point, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go for the Warcries have a minimum 10 power. Later in this particular build, since we have 4 Warcries here we want to use, I will change and use this wheel instead for Warcry speed, so this quality of life. This is more damage, and along with call to arms, if you only use 1 Warcry, is very nice to take for early on, and it's pretty much all the damage you want. You can go ahead and grab this physical wheel here if you are using a physical weapon to level up. And from then, just go here, grab this damage and resolute technique, and then you fill out the other things. You go ahead and grab all the endurance charges. Last but not least, you get the cluster. This is probably around level 80 something. And then you fill out everything you see on the tree here, including the aura cluster, the life, the charges. And this cluster is the very tanky cluster. I take every single one of them, but you take this one last. If you care about surviving, you take this one earlier, but in my opinion you don't need it. Corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. You can use a flask to solve it early on. Okay, so we have the mastery summary here. We used these mastery, the armor mastery of 1 maximum resistant. We have all armor pieces has armor, so we can have this. The charge mastery for 3% increased damage per endurance, frenzy, or power charge. Sorry, I want to take a sip. It's hurting my throat, talking too much. Right, the charge mastery have 3% damage per charge. But the total amount of these 3 charges that we normally have is 17 to 20, depend on the actual gear and setup. So this at least give us 51% damage and at most 60%, which is very nice for 1 point. This mastery is extremely nice if you are a charge stacker. In this case, we only stack endurance charge, so it's not that good, but it's still very good. 45 mastery, we are always fortified while mapping and doing bossing. As long as we're hitting something, we have 45. So this is also always active. 10% reduced damage over time taken, very nice. This is the hardest stat to get defensively. Life mastery, this is the mastery for 50 life is very big because Brass Dome prevent us from having the bonus flat life from strength, so we lose a lot of flat life there. So the 50 flat life is very big. The skill cost life, instead of 30% mana cost, you only take this if you play the Cyclone version, and this help you to deal with the mana cost problem. But if you do not need this, then feel free to just remove it and then put the point something else, maybe into more life or something. The physical mastery here, I choose to take this physical wheel because the weapon is a very high damage weapon, just damage number, not DPS. So this is the best case scenario to take this point. Where else you want to take? But this, for this weapon, this is just the best time, the only time that you want to pick the physical cluster to get this. Corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you for obvious reason. Two-handed mastery for 60% increased damage. We don't care about the attack speed. I will explain later. But this is just 60% increase. Very nice for 1 point. And last but not least, the most important build enabling for the permanent Vaal Earthquake playstyle is the Warcry have a minimum of 10 power. I will explain in details in the Warcry section. Pantheon. So basically Pantheon, I try to get more defensive, but all the Pantheon are defensive. So which one do we choose? And for the major god, I think the best is Soul of Arakali over here. You don't need to unlock all of the 3 extra bonuses down here. It's very easy to unlock anyway, but you don't need it. Mostly I take this for the 10% reduced damage taken over time. The other things here are nice, but not really necessary. So Ralakash or so Shakari for minor god. It depends on if you can get immune to poison or you can get immune to bleeding. If you have immune to bleeding, you take the less poison. If you are immune to poison, you take the reduced damage taken while moving, which is basically for bleeding. Yeah, if you have both, in my case, I personally would still use the Soul of Shakari here because it can be activate the secondary bonus for 5% reduced chaos damage taken here. It is very nice because it applies to hit damage as well. And 25 reduced chaos damage over time taken. This is while on caustic ground. This is on top of your resistance, so it's also quite nice. It's also helpful. Yeah, that is my preference. I will choose this if I have both poison and bleed immunity. But remember, if you only have one, either bleed or poison, then you choose the other one. That makes sense. Next we get to gear. Firstly is the weapon. This is Marohi Erqi. It is the single highest amount of local weapon damage you can have in the game right now, with some downsides. There is another weapon that is like the Winds of Fate or the Winds of Change something stuff, but that weapon requires you to crit to deal damage, and that downside, personally for me, I think that downside is way worse compared to this one. For attack skill, you can imagine that the staff cap you at 50% crit chance, so 1 out of 2 of your Vaal Earthquake you do no damage for the whole duration of 12 seconds. Yeah. And also the reason why I choose this weapon is because it is in fact a tier 0 weapon. It has the same rarity of dropping as a Mageblood, a Headhunter. The fact that you might even check right now on POE trade. Let's actually go ahead and go to POE trade and check Marohi Erqi. We see 374 matches. We check Mageblood. We see almost the same amount of Mageblood on the market, and this we have to take into consider that people actually use Mageblood when they have them more often than Marohi. Like 99% of people who has a Marohi either not even pick them up, or they just don't use it and list it up on trade. Headhunter. Yep, the same amount of trade result. So this a tier 0 weapon. Very, very fancy, right? But the price. This is the cheapest tier 0 weapon ever. 5C, 10C, 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 10C. So I think it's criminal if nobody do anything with this tier 0 unique. So I decided to go for it and try to make it work. Right, it's very cheap, high flat physical damage, but it has the downside of negative attack speed. As you can see, the slowest attack speed in the game, probably beside Tripanon. And also minus accuracy rating, which if you don't deal with it, your attack will miss like more than half the time, so you will deal no damage. And there's one more thing I have to say. If you are a fan of, you know, big ass strong warrior style of character, this weapon looks sick, man. I think it looks just very sick, especially when you use it on a beefy guy like Marauder in this case. Right, so that is about the weapon. It has very high damage potential, but it has also very heavy downside that we have to deal with, and we will try to solve those problems, the attack speed and the accuracy, in the later part. Second for this build is the helmet, and I chose for this setup to use the Echoes of Creation. This is the best helmet in the game for Warcry. So whenever you use Warcry, this is just the best helmet in the game, especially for things like Vaal Earthquake in this case, because you Warcry, you exert the attack. The attack has a very, very long duration, so it negates the most of the clunkiness of the playstyle. Unlike when you play a normal slam skill, if you play Warcry, you Warcry, you slam once, you slam twice, and maybe third time, and then you run out of exerted attack, which is a bummer. While in this case, we just do once, and then we have the whole duration of 12 seconds of exerted Vaal Earthquake. Very nice, very synergistic. It provides a huge amount of damage, especially if you play a build like I do in this case, where we are Resolute Technique. You do not have crit to scale your damage, so you very starve for more multipliers, and this is the big more multiplier. You have a total of 6 or 7 Warcries that can exert an attack in the game. So, but realistically in this case I use 4, and with the max roll helmet here, which is very cheap still, like 10C for a maximum roll. I got mine for the best roll of both take damage and deals more damage, which both is 15% for 15C, because nobody is using it. This helmet, funny story, is actually made by Ben. If you don't know, Ben is the god of POE. He basically wins everything. He's the fastest to almost every races since he joined the scene. If you ask any POE player right now who is the best POE player, most of them probably say Ben. And even the very like big streamers, content creator, they also will say the same. It's Ben. And this, the helmet made by him, very cool. The gear next I want to talk about is the armor, which is the brass dome. The brass dome is the highest item armor item you can have in the game, up to 4240 here, over 4000 armor. It can be even higher with quality and implicit, but it's overkill, right? A lot of armor. It also have up to my 5 maximum all resistant, which is a very nice thing. Always, for any build, you like maximum resistant. It has the drawback of strength providing no bonus to maximum life. Okay, we have to deal with it, even though we have a lot of strength in this build, which provide with a lot of flat life, but the benefit of the chest still outweigh the penalty here. We take no extra damage from critical strike. This is an extremely strong mod, especially if you want to do juice map, juice content, or even simulacrum, where the crit are the very most dangerous thing that can one-shot you. You take no extra damage from critical strike. You don't have to worry about anything. And to combo with other pieces of gear, it will make us extremely tanky. This is the go-to armor for Queen 69. If you are familiar with that guy, you will see him using that armor a lot. I have nothing more to say about Quinn. Right, the gear. This is the glove. I decided to put this glove here for the Vaal Earthquake, permanent Vaal Earthquake. You have to have this, right? So if you cannot afford this yet, you will not have a 100% uptime of Vaal Earthquake playstyle, but you have to use it along with a secondary setup like a Cyclone Shockwave or a General's Cry setup. I would recommend Cyclone Shockwave because the Cyclone Shockwave is one setup, one link setup. But if the General's Cry, if you want to play General's Cry, you would not be afford to have enough skill gems to use Vaal Earthquake as well. So yeah, you need this glove to play the permanent Vaal skill Vaal Earthquake. Just it change the soul requirement to rage cost, and you generate rage through the Warcry. I will explain in details in the Warcry section. This glove used to be extremely expensive last league and previously. In the category of last league is like over 100 divine. I remember, if not, it might have at some point be even double that amount of expensiveness, like 240 divine something in ultimatum. I'm not even sure. I'm not entirely sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in fact very expensive. We can still check in POE Ninja last league. On average it is 105 divine, but this league it is only run about 10 to 15 divine, depend on the time where you check it, right? I bought mine for 11, but I don't think it will shoot up back to like the hundreds of divine category. So it is the best time to try it out, this glove and this playstyle, if you couldn't in the past. Okay, I want to stress again, it's not mandatory unless you want to play just 100% Vaal EQ. So just use a Cyclone Shockwave setup along with Vaal EQ if you don't have this glove. Right, the other there will be other good options for gloves before you can before you can afford this one. I will put the recommendation on the budget section, on the low budget section, in a later slide, right? So next, the gear. This is the boots slot. I think this is the best in slot boots for any builds that use a good amount of charges. It got changed this league to be much better than before. Lastly, previously it was something around 1 to 2 divine, but right now it is as cheap as 1520C. I don't know why people do not use this more often. It is one of the best boots in the game universally for every build, because by default, even though if you don't invest into any kind of charges, you have 3 endurance, 3 frenzy, and 3 power charges. If you can have those up all the time, you already have 120% crit, 12% more damage, 12% all elemental resistant, 12% physical mitigation. That is already good enough. But in most build, we take more charges, more maximum charges. So this is extremely good, and you don't have to worry about actually generating any of those. You always have all the benefit of the charges, right? And it is also very cheap, from 15 to 20C. In my character, I had one with a +1 maximum endurance charge. That is the only time where when it becomes expensive. It probably is around 20 to 25 divine at the moment. See, I just explained it gave a huge amount of defense and offensive stat for our character. And this one, in this case, also enable the use of Arn's Anguish Belt, while not losing out on any benefit of the endurance charge, which we heavily scale with this character. Lastly, it was very annoying to play this boot, because it makes your minimum charge equal to your maximum charge while you are stationary. So whenever you stop and cast a spell, or you stop and then do an attack, and it cannot even be used with things like Cyclone when you're consistently moving. But now, and the most annoying part of it was the sound effect of when the charges just expire whenever you change from being stationary to moving. Just very annoying. It drives me crazy, even though it's very strong. I refused to use them last league and previously, but now it has changed. It is indefinitely better. I think everyone should try that out on their build, unless they have a fixed boots that they need to use. This boot will just, be a very nice addition to almost any build in the game. Almost. Next is the belt. This is a very strong belt. Before you can get Mageblood, it gets up to 15 maximum life, 60% fire resistant, a good chunk of armor. Most importantly is 1 maximum endurance charge. Here we are stacking endurance charge, so this is extremely nice. And it also changed the endurance charge to become the brutal charges. Using this belt along with the Relakesh boots will allow you to have the benefit of both endurance and brutal charges. 1 brutal charge gives you 3% to deal triple damage. So roughly, if I'm doing the math correctly here, is 6% overall more damage, more or less. It will be less if you also use Intimidating Cry, because for some reason double and triple damage in POE, there's a stack on top of each other, is either double or triple. So for Intimidating Cry, you are always doing double already. So if it doesn't prop triple, you gain less than what you're supposed to be if you don't have the Intimidating Cry. But long story short, this has a lot of defensive stat that is good for us. It has max charge, and it also provides a ton of damage, a ton of damage in the form of brutal charges. But remember, you have to use them with Relakesh Impatient boosts. Right, we are almost halfway through. Allow me to have one more sip. My throat is burning. Right, the amulet. First of all, I have to say this is the tankiest item ever exist in the game. Probably every single hardcore player is probably using one of these. This basically prevent you from dying to anything but one shot, because it heals you before you take the hit. So for example, when I was at 50% health, right, then I take a hit, would that do 50% of my health as damage? So without this amulet, I will take 50% and I will die, right? But with this amulet, I will, before take that hit of 50%, I will be healed for up to, with max catalyst it's 42%, but let's say 30%. Let's say it is a middle roll here, 30% of that hit, which is 15% of my maximum life. So I will gain that life back, which puts me to 65% of maximum life. And then after that happen, I will take the 50% hit, which will take me down to 15% health instead of 0%, basically. And in POE, most of the time you will die to a bunch of small hits stacked together. So this amulet will just save your ass most of the time. You can see I can AFK in maps in the middle of just a whole lot of explosion on death, fireball thingy on the ground. And normally if you do not have this, you will just die from all those. But they are separated hits, so I can stand in the middle of them and basically take no damage. Of course, along with other layer of mitigation. But this is extremely good, especially if you have a lot of mitigation, so you are less vulnerable to one hit. And yeah, if everything takes 2 hits to kill you, it will not kill you. If you have other form of recovery as well, it will be extremely tanky, and we do in this build. This one you can start using them for quite cheap, which is 50 chaos at the moment. I just checked before I record this video, but 50 chaos for like a 25 or 26 roll is definitely good enough for starting out on the build. You can upgrade to one with higher roll. We only care about this roll, basically the gain missing unreserved life before being hit by an enemy. You only care about this roll. So when you upgrade the amulet, basically you upgrade the roll, depend on your budget. The max roll I think right now is like 7 or 8 divine, but a 3 to 5 3 divine will get you like 32% roll, which is good enough. In my case, I'm using one like that. I am using 34% actually. Let me price check. Alright, we only care about the last roll. 33% is only 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 divine. If this is 34, 3 divine, right? For 3 divine you get almost the max roll, only 1 off, but it's definitely good enough. The next gear slot is the rings, and the rings we actually have multiple option here. So this ring slot, the ring 1, I would say we want a maximum endurance charge on this ring slot. The cheapest option is the comms sign, which give 1 maximum endurance charge and almost nothing else. A little bit of life, okay, I guess. Yeah, and the other more expensive option you can go for is either the Circle Guild, which is the ring that is the ring that has 2 modifiers that related to hero purity, and In my case, in my build, I am using a Precursor's Emblem for 1 maximum endurance charge. This can be, the price is very random based on a roll. They are all both very random, very random items, and it can cost you anywhere from like 2-3 divine to 20, 30, 50 divine, just based on your budget. Choose one that fit your budget, right? Calm sign is fine, but any of those is nice. And you also can have potential for using a raring with the +1 endurance charge implicit as a synthesized item, but that is not realistic for a low budget. It's going to be extremely expensive, and I'm not even sure if it just outperform the Precursor Emblem or the Circle Guild here, since they do provide very good things as well. Ring number 2 in my setup, I use Heartbound Loop for the, basically everything here is useless, right? Some life regen is okay, but it's too small of a role to care about. Mana regen we don't need. The implicit is useless for us as well, so that's why I try to go for the corruption here. I have a very extremely nice corruption, but there's none on the market. But for example, if you just go for bleeding cannot be inflicted on you, you have multiple options here from 10 to 30 chaos. There probably is more listed on the market. There are plenty for you to grab. Or cannot be poisoned. Cannot be poisoned seems to be more rare, so probably we will get bleeding cannot be inflicted on you. And then you deal with poison with either the Soul Shakari over here, or you deal with it by taking 3 points into this wheel over here and get the mastery of immune to poison if equipped helmet have higher evasion rating than armor. Oh, actually this is also immune to bleeding, so probably in this case, right, the best way to deal with no poison immunity is to just have maximum chaos rest, which easily we can do in this build, and also take this. So we are still basically immune to poison because the poison stacks. When it stacks on us is dangerous. When it's only 3 poisons, it's nothing, right? We are a defensive guy, we don't worry about 3 stack poisons. Right. So this ring, why do I use this ring? This ring, I use this only for this line, the 350 physical damage taken on minions' death. And I have a setup for the Spectre of Dark Marionette. They can revive themselves when they are dead, when they die, after 1 second. So I constantly cycling through the Spectre here. Let me get into my hideout actually, so you can see without even having anything that hits my minion, my minions will constantly die, and it will hit me, right? So it will generate the endurance charge in this case because I was hit recently, you see. And currently I am 9 maximum endurance charge, and I will always stay at 9. The time doesn't even tick. It comes to probably maximum to 11 seconds, but it will always stay near the maximum, right? And also self-hit allow me to proc the little circle. There you go, you can see it, the little yellow circle around me, that is vengeance. I used vengeance to maim the target, so it take 10% increased physical damage in my case. To hex touch with vulnerability, because this is a very expensive glove and I don't think realistically I can get a curse on hit glove, so I have to set up like this. to get the automated curse. Right. Wait a second. I think I do have. I just realized one thing. This is probably very bad for the for the video. However, I did make a mistake right there. I just realized that the curse on hit. Oh wait, the curse on hit. If it's curse on hit, it doesn't cost mana, right? Yeah, I don't think it costs mana. All right, let me test this real quick. See if the target has the vulnerability on hit. Okay, I'm down. POE. Is it even? Ah, yeah, they do have the vulnerability. We don't need to spend a mana. Whew, I was right. Alright. We're good. This is still correct. So that is why, come back to the topic, that is why I use this ring. Basically a cheap ring so I can get nice implicit corrupt on it. And it also enable the self-hitting with automation with Dark Marionette. I will explain the Dark Marionette setup in more details in a later slide. There are also ring alternatives that you can get if you don't want to set up the Dark Marionette, because if you come to map, you get hit by enemy monster, and you will also get the endurance charge anyway. So yeah, you can use other ring. I go ahead and search real quick in in trade, and I also have the one ring in my own stash that has both this corruption. Okay, this is the option that you can go for if you don't want to go with the self damage setup. It is very nice in my opinion, and I would recommend you to use the self damage setup. However, you can use these and still have both the very good implicit quality of life here. Okay, we are done with the 10 gear slot that we are wearing on our character. Now we get to the unique jewel. There are 4 total unique jewel that I am using in the build right now. So first of all is the Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Hinekora's Death Fury, which is the Chieftain Explosion node, known as Chieftain Explosion node. We just understand it that way. It is a very nice node for mapping, especially for juice mapping, so I want to take it. And turns out it is extremely cheap this league. Let me show you live on trade, right? Let's see what is the price exactly at this moment. Fresh and Flame, Hinekora's Death Fury. All right. With this trade, with this search, I will be able to... Oh, wait, what is this? Why is none of this on the market? Ah, I'm having Marohi Erqi on the trade. My bad. Right, so this one, we have both the blue and the red for 1 divine. Very cheap to have access to this here, right? There's only 1 red for 1 divine, but the other one is not like a lot of money. It can be like 2 divine, 1.5. Long story short, it is cheap. It is Chieftain Explosion. It is very nice. Use them. And then the second jewel, the third jewel, is the That Which Was Taken. It is very nice addition to this league. This one is the one I am using. However, you would like to search for something like Warcry's grant 5 reach with 5 power, and either cannot take physical reflect or 4 to 5 chaos resistant per endurance charge. Those are the stat that we kind of need in our charm to run all the map mods and to cap the chaos rest, so it would be nice to have. However, there are multiple mods that can be really beneficial to you, so depend on your budget and depend on what you like. You like more damage, look for more damage. For example, the enemies take increased damage while in consecrated ground that you created. That is a very nice mod that is not very expensive right now, and we have multiple ways to create consecrated ground. That word. This jewel, normally all this kind of jewel will take you like 1 divine, 2 divine and above, depend on how nice they are. But the most important thing is the Warcry grants 5 reach per 5 power. And even better, I would like to mention, you don't even need the jewel before you have the Hateforge. So before the Hateforge, the jewels are not mandatory. The Warcry mod are not mandatory. The Warcry mod is very cheap as well. It's not expensive mod, but you don't even need to have it before you have a Hateforge. So yeah, this is something that you don't need to worry about early on. And then I use a brute force solution, so I can turn some of my intelligence into some of my strength into intelligence, so I have enough intelligence to use some gem that I want. Alright, I put it over here. This will convert these to intelligence to make me have currently 138 intelligence, so I can use things like Grey Spectre at level 13. Level 13 Grey Spectre is recommended because it allow you to have 2 maximum Spectre, right? Those are the unique jewel that I used in this build. And then we come to rare jewel and cluster jewel. So the rare jewel, basically we need 2 rare jewel. We have 2 jewel socket for rare jewel in my setup, and we need, the only stat we need is 3% mana reservation efficiency. We need 2 of those to fit in all the auras as we have, and have a tiny bit of mana left, even though we don't need to use them for anything, but it is the optimal number for my setup to be able to fit in all the aura and harrow and buff that I want. And for the cluster jewel, the best, undisputed best node in the cluster jewel is Overlord. It basically grants you free fortify. It is a very nice to have thing, but only if you have the budget for it, because only this Overlord keystone Overlord notable on a cluster jewel that has 3 random notable, it shoot up the price to like 3-4 divine. Only this node. If you do not have the money early on, you just buy a random cluster jewel with drive the destruction, maybe fuel the fight, or just basically search for, let me actually demonstrate the search here. We need to search for cluster jewel, right? So we search for number passive, enchant here, maximum is 8 because we do not want to waste passive point, right? So we want the node, drive the destruction here for some leech. Very nice. I like some life leech, especially if you play a convert now to elemental version. You need the drive destruction here, and then we search for number of notable passive skill and put it minimum at 3, and there you have it. The cheapest one for chaos. I'm not sure if he's gonna sell But long story short, it is somewhere less than 20 chaos. For 20 chaos, you can find one and then have a cluster to use before you can afford Overlord. But upgrading to Overlord from the budget setup, I would say probably is the first priority to get the Overlord. It helps tremendously with your tankiness. Very good quality of life. Next, about the charm, I know it is the wall of text, but long story short, we have 3 charms, and we have one that which was taken, which equals to 2 charms. So we have 10 slot for charm mods, right? So what we need in those 10 mod, what is required in those 10 mod? First one, assuming you have Hateforge, you need 3 mods of Warcry's grant 5 rage per 5 power when you have less than 25 rage. I would have to say that even if you don't have Hateforge and you don't use the Vaal Earthquake, just with this setup you still have rage, and rage gives you very nice bonus, 1% 1% of damage per 1 rage, 2% of attack speed per 1 rage, and 1% of attack speed per 2 rage, and 1% of movement speed per 5 rage. So with this setup, with 1 Warcry, you have 30 rage. With 3 of the Warcry's grant 5 rage per 5 power, you have 30 rage. Let me show you in the game here. Here, 30 rage, which give you all the bonuses of the rage. It is nice even though if you don't have Hateforge and need the rage to cast your Vaal Earthquake. So just use it. Just get though is very cheap. I have example of the charms that I use. That is here, 25C, 20C. This one is a bonus charm of nice thing you can have if you already have 3 Warcries and you have already have cannot take reflected physical and enough chaos resistant per endurance charge. You can have something like this, which is quite nice. There are 40C. The jewel, I used an example of the jewel that I have, which is 7 divine. But the things you need is again just the Warcry mod for generating rage. On those 10 mods, right? We're back to on those 10 mods. You need 3 Warcry grant 5 rage mods. So we have 7 left. One of them should be cannot take reflected physical damage. Just for quality of life. You don't care about unidentified map. You don't care about reflect map. You can just run everything. And then we also need 3 of the chaos resistant per endurance charge roll, ideally 4 to 5%. I believe so. Right now I have 9 endurance charge. With the Arn's Anguish version without Mageblood, you have 10. So let's assume we are using the 10 endurance charge version. So with 10 endurance charge, with 3 mods of 4% per endurance charge, we get a total of 120% of chaos resistant, which bring us from negative 60 to positive 60%, along with a roll on this Ralakesh boots. You're capped on chaos rest, right? So all the charms helping us to cap the chaos resistant. We are using all uniques, so that's why the resistance mostly come from the charms. And then, you know, whatever stat you feel is nice, so those are like 7 out of 10. So you have 3 more slot for some other stat. Like for example, I have here on slot Consecrated Ground, Here we have AoE per entrance charge, nearby enemies are chilled, also nice. All elemental resistant for you and nearby allies is also a nice mod if you have not been able to cap your resistance. Right, so find the combination of mods that works for you. Here are the things that you need. Try to search, because you need 3 of these and 3 of these, so you try to search for Warcry's green 5 rage. Remember to be 5 rage, right? And chaos resistant per endurance charge, remember to be at least 4, and search for it. You will probably need one of these. It's one like this, since they occupy the most amount of slot in your charm mods. Right, so the most budget setup I found yesterday probably cost around 1.5 divine, all the charms being like 20 to 30c, and the jewel for like 1 Nova. The jewel again is not necessary before you get Hateforge, but when you get Hateforge, you probably can afford another divine or 2 for that which was taken. Flasks and gems, right? We are almost near the end. Flasks and gems, we'll go to gems first, right? So this is the semi-budget setup without Mageblood, without Hateforge. This ring is still a precursor emblem, but you can pretend it to be the Calm's sign. This is just the gear I have on my character at that point. The precursor emblem I got there basically give me 1 maximum endurance charge, which is the same as a Calm's sign, and then 1% movement speed per endurance charge, which is 10% movement speed. If you use the Calm's sign, you even may have more life than what I used here. So it'll be fine. You don't really need this one. You can use the 1C ring till eternity. So the links, the gems. Vaal Earthquake is linked to Shockwave. Shockwave is a triggered gem normally used with Cyclone, but it can be linked to any other attack. In this case, I link it to Vaal Earthquake as well. It is a triggered attack gem that is linked to another attack. So when you hit with the another attack, which in this case is Vaal Earthquake, you will trigger the Shockwave to deal a bunch more damage. It has a very good damage effectiveness, which synergy really well with Marohi Erqi, which is a slow and heavy hitting weapon. It's just 2 skill that works very nicely with this slow and heavy hitting weapon of Marohi Erqi. Linked to Awaken melee physical damage. This gem level 1 is 35c, so get one and level up if you are not rich. But if you have the money, just buy a level 5. We use this mostly for the level 5 bonus of chance to intimidate. So we don't need to get it from another sources. Intimidate makes your enemy takes 10% increased attack damage, which is very nice. It's more multiplier. Endurance charge on melee stun is the one of the best damage support gem actually, because we always have maximum endurance charge with the Rakesh boots. So 4% damage per charge translate into 10% into 40% in this setup. 40% more damage. There is just no other better gem for this slot, right? Even you can keep this gem even at level 1. The quality and the level of the gems doesn't matter. It always gives 4% of damage per charge. Pulverize is very nice for this setup, because we don't care about attack speed. Pulverize give us a huge amount of more melee damage and also AoE in trade-off for reducing our attack speed, but we don't care about that, so all good. Is one of the best support gem again. And last but not least, the Awakened Brutality. You can use a normal version. The Awakened one have chance to crush enemies on hit. At level 5, the crush reduce the physical mitigation of the target for 20%. Is something that is nice to have, but not required on the start, right? Both the Awaken can be normal version, and both the Awaken gems here I'm using here are 35C for a level 1. Very cheap, very cheap. Next damage setup is the Cyclone Shockwave. Actually, pardon me, I will have to go D&D here. Sorry, SUR LW. Go ahead and buy that from someone else. Yeah, the second setup in the armor, body armor, is Cyclone Shockwave. Again, Cyclone Shockwave, very nice. Endurance Charge or melee stun, Pulverize, melee physical damage, and Brutality. This is what I use. Ideally, you also want the Awakened version, but you don't need it. As you can see here, I used the normal version. It works just fine. There is actually there is also another way to set up this one. You can replace one of these support gem with the Vengeance as well, because we constantly hitting ourselves, right? So with the Vengeance, so you basically have a double skill setup in a 6-link. You don't need this one to be a 6-link. You can have Vengeance as well, so it will be a bunch more extra damage. Vengeance is also very nice. It has a good amount of damage effectiveness, which again synergy really well with this. It has the same damage scaling as Shockwave, but Shockwave has less cooldown, so slightly better. In our glove, we have Blood and Sand and Vitality linked to Arrogance. This one will reserve like 35 or 40% of your total HP, which is fine. We just need 50% of our life anyway, so alright. And then we get Summon Skitterbot, not linked to these three because we don't want it to be affected by Arrogance. We want to still reserve this one on our mana. On Helmet, we have Purity of Element and Petrified Blood, both reserved on our mana. And then Frostblink, linked to Life Tap. This setup, I am using Frostblink because I am using Cyclone, and Cyclone is nice when you use with the normal Frostblink, which is an instant kill, but you can keep cycloning and then Frostblink. There's the things that I liked, so I used this one. But feel free to use Flame Dash. I think Flame Dash is good because it had 3 charges instead of just 1 and then cooldown like Frostblink. Then we have Pride, links to Ray Spectre, Guardian Blessing, and Infernal Legion. The Spectre here is the Dark Marionette, as I already mentioned before. So if we link it to Infernal Legion, it will consistently degen itself for 40% of the Spectre's life per second, and then eventually die and reform, and then die again and reform. So it triggers the Heartbound loop. So the Heartbound loop can trigger the we are hit recently on the Ascendancy, and then in this case we gain brutal charges instead of endurance charge. We still have the benefit of endurance charge with the Ralakesh boots, but we also gain all the brutal charges up to a maximum permanently always. That is why the self-damage setup is really nice here. To elevate this setup, we use the Guardian Blessing and Pride. Pride is the aura that makes enemy takes increased physical damage when they stay in the radius of the aura. Linked with Guardian Blessing, the aura is cast on your minion, so everything around your minion will be affected by Pride. This is not like 100% uptime or anything, because the Spectre may randomly like die at the same time, and whenever they die at the same time, the Guardian Blessing doesn't take into effect. They only have the aura active if there is at least one minion from the supporter skill is alive. That is why, but we only really need this when we have like one tough bosses or one tough rare. So it's okay, our skill we can use that on demand. It's an instant skill. It will not like make you stop to cast an aura or anything. Is instant, so it's not that bad, right? It's nice to have an extra aura when you need it. The Flask mod for the non-Mageblood version. So I use on all of my 3 magic flasks here, the sulfur, a silver, and a quicksilver, with use when reach full charges. On mapping, I think that is simply the best setup for just general mapping for builds that do not gain like a ton of flask charges. And we use when hit a rare or unique enemy on Lion's Roar. Oh, I actually use on sulfur as well. Right, so whenever we have something tough, and we have the benefit of Lion's Roar and sulfur, which is basically more damage. And then we have movement speed mods on Quicksilver and Silver, just to move faster. Remember that moving faster when you have Vaal Earthquake active actually deals more damage, because the damage of Vaal Earthquake again is dealt based on the number of, based on however many times you can step, which is move speed, by the way. You move faster, you step more, and then you deal damage more. So move speed is damage, and yeah, we don't need any other fast suffixes, so we try to get move speed. And then also in this case, in order to deal with curses, I want to roll a reduce 50% or more effect of curses on the sulfur flask. So when we have the sulfur flask active, it creates the consecrated ground, which by itself already reduced the curse effect by 50%. So we are on consecrated ground, and with this flask active, we have 100% reduced effect of curses, which is very nice. We have the live flask here. So just whatever mod you need, whichever element that you didn't have a way to deal with, you deal with by using this flask, right? If you have not taken the cannot be affected by corrupted blood, just use that. That's the most important. If you already have that, then maybe immune to poison. If you already immune to everything, then just increase the life that of the life flask, or even remove the life flask if you feel like you don't need it. In my case, even before the Mageblood, I don't use the life flask. This is a very replaceable flask slot. I will probably replace it with like a quartz flask for phasing. This phasing is nice with Vaal Earthquake, where you can run through everything without like stumble into any monster. Alright, so this is the current setup that I am using. One note, and here in the glove, I actually have the corrupted glove of cursed enemy with vulnerability on hit, so that's why you don't see any curses in this setup. But when I change to Hateforge for a permanent Vaal Earthquake playstyle, I have to do the Hex Touch setup unless I somehow get the Von on hit on this glove, right? It will be a pain and very expensive to get, so that's why I am using this setup in a moment. Vengeance, Maim, Hex Touch, and Vulnerability on the glove, so I have Auto Curse. Vaal Earthquake, still the same setup as before, but in the body armor we change a lot. Here we remove all the Cyclone and Shockwave setup, and we put in the life tap with 4 Warcry in order to maximize the benefit of the Ben's helmet here, the Echoes of Creation, and then life tap. Because we don't have any mana left, and everything here costs quite a lot of mana, so we just link it to life tap and then link to Flame Dash here, because we no longer have the Cyclone playstyle. So Flame Dash feels nicer to me than Frostblink, and I switch to Flame Dash, life tap, and forward cry in this current setup here. In the helmet, I have Blood and Sand. I pretty much always keep it in Bloodstand for more damage, because I think the AoE is good enough, but feel free to use Sandstand for more AoE when you mapping, and when you need the damage you can change to Bloodstand. Very simple. Petrified Blood, Pride, and Herald of Purity. So there is a little bit of change in the auras for the Mage Plus setup, because the Mage Plus setup I always have these 3 flasks, these 4 flasks actually, to be active all the time, so I can get the immunity to shock, freeze, ignite through the flask. And I also have a ton more of resistance and elemental mitigation, so I don't need to use the purity of element to deal with element. As you can see here, we have purity of element, and here we have the pride to be a permanent aura. So we have consistent pride aura, and then Herald Purity. So here with all this we can fit it with our setup into our character, and we have like 10 mana left for using nothing, right? So I try to fit all of this into the setup. Herald of Purity for increase the physical damage, as well as also you will have 4 minions from the Herald Purity. I think you can even have more, but you can have, currently I am having 4, and along with the Race Spectre I will have 5-6 allies nearby me at the same time, which enable me to use the charm mod of having Onslaught while there is at least 5 other allies nearby, which is quite nice. There's the reason why I use Herald Purity here, more damage, and enable Onslaught. And then last but not least, the Spectre setup, but it changed. As you can see, I no longer use Pride on the Guardian Blessing. For this setup, I found that I want everything to be more consistent, so I instead just run the Race Spectre with Infernal Legion. So the Spectre still dies and trigger the self-hit, but the aura here I run is Vitality and Arrogance. They are all linked together, but actually they are 2 separated links, right? Vitality is linked to Arrogance, and Race Spectre is linked to Infernal Legion. So the purpose of Vitality and Arrogance here is for me to still have some of my life reserved, so I can use the mastery of the aura wheel here. I can still use this mastery for 1 maximum resistance. Right, the Flask mod for Mageblood, if you have a Mageblood, you probably know it already, but increase Flask effect as much as possible, basically. I am now having Curse immune and Ignite Freeze Chill immune from this Flask. Right? And if you already deal with any of these, then for this build, I personally would just recommend you to have more movement speed on the Flask. On any Flask, right? It's the best start. Alright, we are close to the end. Now, we talk about Warcries. So the current setup that I'm using, I use 4 Warcry with the current Echoes of Creation helmet. In order of importances, I would like to recommend using Intimidating Cry, which is the most important one. It allowed your Vaal Earthquake to deal double damage for the whole duration of it. Then Rallying Cry gives more damage. The Seismic Cry gives more AoE. And last, I use Inferno Cry for the whole reason that because it is a Warcry that can affect my Vaal Earthquake. It doesn't have much synergy in terms of increasing damage. It adds a little bit of explosion and a little bit more extra damage, but yeah, the point is why I use this is for the Echoes of Creation, the band's helmet. So one extra Warcry means 15% more damage from the helmet, so that's why 4 Warcry. Normally while mapping we don't need to use all 4 Warcries, you just need to use one, like Intimidating Cry, right? Bam, and you have the rage to cast the Earthquake, and then you move. You don't need to use all of them. You only need all for like single target. Other interaction. First of all, the self damage. I've probably talked about it already, but the purpose of self damage here is to trigger Vengeance. And trigger Vengeance help me to curse enemy with vulnerability on Hex Touch, and also maim support for 10% increased damage taken. Very nice. How to do it? Dark Marionette Spectre. I actually will recommend you to use the cheapest one, which is the Imperfect Dark Marionette Spectre, because we don't need the explosion and the scorch for this physical build. If you are converting to element, obviously you should use the perfect Dark Marionette. It's like 70k right now. However, in my build, physical, so you don't need it. Just use the imperfect. They do not explode when they're dead, so it's easier on the ear as well if you sit in the hideout. Let me demonstrate. So whenever you are in the hideout, right, and the Spectre still, just dying constantly, they poof. This is the imperfect one. They just poof. But if it is a normal or a perfect one, it will have an explosion like splash. It's a more noisy sound. I don't really enjoy it too much. It doesn't bother me as much as well, but I don't really enjoy it. So I decided to go for the imperfect Dark Marionette in my case. Also, one more thing, the Spectres is kind of clunky whenever you change gear or you respect the tree, change something that affect the intelligence stat, which will disable the minion, and they drop the corpses on the ground. And in one cases before I had that, normally I will not do anything to the corpses and I can resummon them, right? But at the same time, there is a guy that was trading in my hideout. He is the auto Warcry Eternal Apple build, and he exploded my corpses, so I lost 140 chaos right there. I lost both of my corpses, 140 chaos. If you're using the cheap one here, the worst case scenario, you lost like 10 chaos, right? So why even use the expensive one, right? So that is self damage. Next is onslaught. I already mentioned it. We have 5 allies nearby with Spectre and the Hero Purity right here. You have maximum 4 summoned Sentinel Purity. You have 2 Spectre, so you have 6 nearby nearby allies. Whenever the Spectre are not dead, you will have onslaught, right? In the maps where they do not die at the same time, probably you will even have almost permanent onslaught. Next, the Arn's Anguish and Ralakesh. I think I already explained this one, so I'll just leave it here, right? Basically, you use both. You gain all the bonus of the charges with or without the conversion of Endurance to Brutal. You gain all the benefit of both Endurance and Brutal. The attack speed and movement speed scaling. So I want to talk a little bit about the Vaal Earthquake in this case, because it is the one in a few skills or skill combo that does not scale with attack speed for dealing damage. As you can see, if you want to read the Vaal Earthquake in this case, right? So after using this skill, right, the line over here, after using this skill, your step will deal damage around you, cracking the earth if the previous cracks have erupted. So basically, the faster you move, the more of those explosions will happen. That is why this skill, the attack speed only affect the part where you initially cast this one, right? It's quite slow, but we do it not often, so it's not a big deal in my opinion. But how fast you deal damage actually does not has anything to do with your attack speed. It has to do with your movement speed. So yeah, that is why we want to have more movement speed if we want to scale more damage with the Vaal Earthquake. Also a note that the Vaal Earthquake will deal more damage with movement speed, but not the shockwave, because the shockwave have a fixed cooldown. So yeah, just want to throw it out there. It has a fixed cooldown, and it will proc every 0.71 second, as you can see here in my current setup. You don't need to invest into cooldown recovery or anything in this with this skill. Just it will just proc whenever it is off cooldown when we do damage with Vaal Earthquake. And you go like that, like that. Right, so we are almost near the end. Here is about the defensive layers. I know this is a very long video already. My back is killing me. But let's get it done, right? This is just Coke, by the way. Defensive layers. So I'm going through all the defensive layers that we have. I might even miss something here, but as you can see, it is plenty enough to make us very tanky. First of all, the endurance charges. It's a signature thing of Juggernaut. Beside the accuracy stacking thing, I don't like it. It's very expensive. But the endurance charge for our build here, one endurance charge in my setup give 5% physical reduction, 18 to 20% chaos resistant, depend on how many charms mod that you have, which is way more than enough, by the way, so you don't worry about the reduction, anything that reduces your chaos resistant. 4% all elemental resistant, So we have, on average, let's say 10 charge, we have 50% physical reduction just from the charges, no armor, no nothing. 180% chaos resistant, which is way enough to put us way over cap. You don't need that much. You can be total of 15%, 14%, even 14%, because we already have 4 from the Ascendancy. So we only need 2 other charms mod to cap our chaos resistant. 4 elemental resistant per charge. This is extremely helpful since we are a full unique build. Without the charge, without like any resistance on gear, we already at the round 20% resistant, right? And so we either deal with it with we either slap in a purity of elements and then we cap or resist, or in the case of Mageblood, you slap on the Flasks. Right? 8% reduced elemental damage taken while at maximum endurance charge. This is always active because we are always at maximum endurance charge, regardless of the situation. We cannot lose the bonus as long as we keep the Relicash boot. 8% of armor applies to elemental damage taken from hits. This is extremely powerful to mitigate the elemental damage, because it's calculated last after everything, and it's very unique to Juggernaut. We do have a charm mod, which is very expensive for this, up to 2%. I think is either 2% or 3% of armor applies to elemental damage taken from hit, and it is extremely expensive, which is also proof for this is very powerful, right? Max resistance we are currently having is 86, 85, and 85. It's not all 90 like if you play a chieftain, it's easy to get all 90% resistance, but we are not using any purity of single element aura, fire, of lightning, of cold. We have very close to cap max rest, and you don't need to worry about it because we also have these and these, the 2 mentioned above, to also apply to elemental mitigation. And on a Mageblood setup with the 3 elemental flasks with 20% less elemental damage taken as well, we are almost immortal to elemental damage. And the maximum rest might be vulnerable to penetration and to minus max rest, but this one, the armor thing, the reduced LA damage taken thing, and the one on the flask, they are not vulnerable to penetration and reduced max rest. So they are very powerful in all cases. The Defiance of Destiny and Petrified Blood is the best combo for both mitigation and recovery. There's a lot of people already talked about this already. So basically you are almost immortal to anything that doesn't one-shot you, because you always heal before you take the damage. The Defiance of Destiny allow you to do that, to heal before you take the hit. And then the Petrified Blood have 2 things that synergize with the Defiance of Destiny. First, it always cut your health in half, so you are always missing half of your health. So basically you always heal a lot with Defiance of Destiny. In order to and it also change 40% of, let me show you in the game actually. Where is Petrified Blood? Yeah, here it is. It will so change 40% of the life loss below half-life is prevented, and then 80% of that it's then lose as damage over time over 4 seconds. So that is, firstly, it mitigate the one hit the true one hit, the ability to be true one shot. And then secondly, it changed that damage, it reduced that damage from 100 to 81%, and then it deals at dot damage. Dot damage can be mitigated with recovery. Very, very nice, since the Defiance of Destiny is an insane source of just recovery. We also have Leech, we also have very good regeneration. So yeah, we also have reduced dot damage taken as well, so we deal with recovery very well. We also have Fortify permanently on whenever we are on a map near a monster and we hit it. We hit it with Overlord. We always have Fortify, and we always have the maximum number of stack, which is 26, due to the fact that we take this nodes over here. We have 6 more maximum fortification and 10% reduced damage over time taken, well, at least while we have fortification, basically. So it is 26% less damage from hits. Again, tanky. 10% reduced dot damage taken from Fortify Mastery, as I just showed you, and 10% from the Soul of Ralakash Pantheon. So we have 20% reduced dot damage. This is a very hard to get stat, but we have it. So yeah, on the Pantheon, you can either have the reduced physical dot while moving, or reduce the chaos damage taken. It really depends on the content that you are farming. If there is any kind of physical degen on the ground, like ground effect, you're already immune to bleed and corrupted blood, so you don't worry about them, right? But if there is any kind of ground effect that is not bleed or corrupted blood, that deal physical damage to you, you take this. Is a lot of mitigation for that. Or in general, in my opinion, just keep the 5% reduced chaos damage taken. This is very nice if you have it active, because to be fair, the chaos damage is still the worst enemy to this build, because we do not have maximum chaos resistant. The way to get maximum chaos resistant require, maybe I can fit in Cluster Jewel, but it requires more level, or I have to cut out the point in life and something. And for now, I think I'm tanky enough. I feel comfortable with it. So this is as much as I am willing to do. Then we have a lot of armor on top of all the mitigation we have above. A lot of armor. The armor helps on physical mitigation, obviously, naturally, and in this case also helps on elemental damage taken. Again, want to show the armor. It is without Flask, because yeah, Mageblood for Flask, but they don't provide any armor. Without Flask, it is 29.2 armor. With Flask, a little bit more, because it's just a Lion's Roar. It's not a defensive Flask, right? 30k armor without any aura and Flask. Pretty good, pretty good. And for the Mageblood setup, obviously we have the very, very juiced Elemental Flask. If you choose to use it, like I do, with a lot of increased effect, it will scale the resist and the less damage taken along with the mods. Right? I have just immunity here for quality of life, but you can have anything else if you find another way to deal with those. This is just a very, very early setup, because I just get the Mageblood. I did not have time to actually try out things with it. Maybe I would change this in the future, but for now, for being tanky, this looks good. Right, so we also have 100% or more reduced effect of curse For Mageblood, it is very simple with one mod from the Flasks, which is juiced up. But for the non-Mageblood, you also have that with the Soulful Flask and the Reduced Effect of Curse. Both 50%, you have 100. Very, very simple. And the regeneration, currently without Fortify give us 0.1% per 145, so 2.6% more. Basically, we have 580 something regen, almost 600. In maps, we always have that, and we always have a tons of leech. Leech comes from this drive the destruction over here, and we also take this node. This is 1.2% of physical damage. Leech's life, we are pure physical, so this is a lot of leech. Alright, we are done with all the defensive layers. I might even miss one or two things, I'm not sure, but I think it's plenty enough, and the character will speak for itself while standing in the map and not dying. Alright, we come to the low budget version. How do we set up at first with not a lot of currency? So a divine right now on the market is somewhere around 215 chaos. So this setup, I just searched it up yesterday, like 8 hours ago or so. I don't think the price of these items change over time that much, but it cost me 183 chaos orb in total for this setup. Marohi Erqi, we just checked, is still 10C. There's even one for 5C, right? The brass dome 5-ling is 20 to 40 chaos based on the roll. For bad roll, shitty roll, I make a boo-boo, right? That's okay. You got the idea. For the, if you don't care about the roll, you want to get the brass dome first, then it's still okay. Get a 5-ling for 20 to 40C, very cheap. That reminds me of the layer of defense. I just want to quickly mention one other layer of defense on the brass dome is the take no extra damage from critical. Very, very strong, especially for juice content. Right, come back to this. And yeah, the brass dome, I think that line alone is worth it. You can upgrade to a 5% maximum resistance and the 6 links later. For a starter, 5-link is okay. You have enough damage to do like yellow maps or something. For the glove, you use this worm sign, worm scale gauntlet. There are actually 2 gloves which can provide you with rampage, but I like this one more because it has a little bit of synergy with endurance charge as well. We are always on endurance charge with the Rakash boots, so we always have a lot of reduced mana cost per endurance charge, which helps with sustained mana when you use your cyclone setup, right? And you have rampage at max endurance charge, which we always are. We lose all endurance charge when rampage ends, but with the Rakash we don't lose that. We just always have the bonuses of the endurance charge. And also, last but not least, it has concentrated effect in here, and it is surprisingly nice for concentrated effect. If you do a 4-link and you put your like Vaal Earthquake in here, so you have a 5-link for very, very cheap. Because for Cyclone, for the budget setup, the clear mostly take care of by Cyclone and Shockwave, or even the General's Cry, you know. But I think the Cyclone and Shockwave is easier to play, easier to set up as well. You have a pseudo 5-link with Conk effect, which you give a lot of damage for potentially your Vaal Earthquake. Put it in here, nice. Chaos Sign Ring, already talked about it. It gives 1 maximum endurance charge. Just used it. Till red map is okay. You know, it gives some life. Try to get the life roll here to a maximum if you care about it. But it's extremely cheap, less than 1C. For the glove, actually, you should get the vulnerability on hit. Corruption. It should take like 20 chaos, 10-20 chaos something for that one mod. It's very common item. There's a lot of corrupted worm sign on the market. Just go ahead and find one. Either +1 frenzy charge is good, 4% more damage with the Ralakesh, or the curse is very nice. Even if you have both of them, on this globe, it's probably someone like for 50-60 chaos. Very cheap still. The Ralakesh Impatient Boots. Criminally cheap. Too cheap for how strong it is. I cannot believe my eyes when I see 10 chaos yesterday when I searched it and try to take a picture for this presentation, right? Before it was 24-25 chaos. Before it was much more expensive. In the early league, when I got my first pair this league, it was 1.3 divine, right? Now I don't know why people are not using it. It is extremely strong for a lot of builds. Again, a lot of builds. The Ralakesh Impatient is done. The Arn's Anguish, 10 chaos. If you have a little bit more money, you can try to find the life roll to be better, and you can also find the implicit to be corrupted, the corrupted implicit to be better as well. I think the best one is the 8-12% movement speed on Flask effect, because movement speed is nice. You don't need anything else, and it is also quite cheap. From what I see last time I checked, the maximum 12% roll of movement speed on Flask effect on a 15% life belt, which is a max roll as well, goes for 1 divine. That is the max roll and max roll. For lower roll, you don't need max, right? For lower roll, like 20C. Very cheap. Just get one. And last but not least, the Defiance of Destiny is 50C. Also, the same category as the Ralakesh. Incredibly cheap. And then the rest of the budget, you invest on Charm. So on Charm, probably get you can go to as I recommend in the Charm section. You will get 3 of the charms for around about 60, 70, 80 chaos. Here I put 60 to put the budget at 183, but we are still like 40 chaos off of 1 divine. So if you have 1 divine, you convert to chaos, you can get all this stuff very easily. Okay, the gems are all free. Even you can find a Vaal Earthquake, but if you want to use Vaal Earthquake without having to get it yourself, you can just buy it on trade for 1C. Easy enough. Right, so I would recommend you to use Cyclone and Shockwave, because it's the easiest, the most straightforward thing to play, especially if you are a new player. If you do not have a lot of experience with POE, Spin to Win is the way to go. Very straightforward. The Vaal Earthquake, the last thing I want to mention, the Vaal Earthquake is doable on a budget setup, but you know, just still slap it on. Whenever you have enough soul, you pop the Vaal Earthquake and you run for 12 seconds, and then you have to use like a Cyclone again. But yeah, not 100% uptime, so you need to keep that in mind. If you want a 100% uptime of Earthquake playstyle, you need the Hateforge glove. Possible upgrade for this build, right? The glove, Hateforge. The ideal will be vulnerability on hit and +1 frenzy charge. Assuming that I'm still using Ralakesh. The boots, I already have the +1 endurance charge on my character. If it is double corrupted with more movement speed, it is absolute best thing you can have for corruption. There is also Death's Door, a unique boot with already +1 maximum endurance charge and bleed immunity. If you can have that with +1 endurance charge, it's like 340 divine right now. Last time I checked, there's only like 2 or 3 of them. But I think I will still keep the Ralakesh for the consistent bonus of all the charges. And then the weapon Marohi Erqi, it can be corrupted with like a local increased physical damage roll. It will be very big because the weapon have a lot of damage. 30% quality is good. It increased the damage as well. And inspiration, if we see inspiration, that means it's time to go for a conversion to fire, cold, whatever you prefer. My current Marohi is already single corrupted with Fortify, which I think is the best mod to have, even though we already have 3 Fortify from Overlord, but it still gives more damage, more physical damage. A double corrupt is way very fancy and unnecessary, but it's a possible upgrade, right? Okay. So yeah, we also, one thing I didn't mention in this is we also can have a double corrupted mod for Brass Dome, maybe +1 maximum O resistant and increased damage. It should be the best double corruption, right? Can we go crit? The answer is yes, you can go crit, but the sad truth is, I think it's only possible with the Mageblood, because with the Mageblood you have the ability to run a very juiced up Diamond Flask for a ton of critical strike chance. Yeah, this build you already have to deal with a lot of problems by the weapon with very low base crit chance, 5%, and negative accuracy, and the gear is very limited because you have a lot of uniques to use. For crit version, I would probably remove the Echo of Creation, grab the Call to Arm for an instant Warcry, so I can keep just one Warcry. In my opinion, is the where is it? I think I keep the. Let me actually set up this again real quick. Right there, right. Intimidating Cry for double damage is just the best synergistic thing with Vaal Earthquake. So I keep that on my left click and always have double damage on Earthquake. And then I don't use Ben's helmet anymore. I use something like an Abyssus for crit, yeah, for maximum damage. Here we go, yeah, something like this, an Abyssus with 1 maximum power charge. So we have more crit, right? As much crit chance as possible, so we can cap crit. And it will probably be a Slayer, because Slayer have to solve the crit by the base crit of the weapon is raised to 8% note here, and also it has the AoE and accuracy 50% global accuracy note here, so it's easier for me to for us to solve the accuracy problem with Marohi with a Slayer. You can also use assassin. Assassin is obviously good for scaling crit. However, I personally think, especially for Vaal Earthquake, and it is just better to use Slayer. If you play Assassin, probably you should not play Vaal Earthquake. You just play the Cyclone Shockwave, or you play the General's Cry. Oh, even General's Cry is very clunky with Assassins, because to play General's Cry, you should have Call to Arm, and you should have the Warcry recovery plus wheel over here. Let me show you the wheel over here. Yeah, this one, this Deep Breath for General's Cry. And you can use an Impossible Escape for this slot, but because of Subtractor, who recently, you know, brings out the Pathfinder Warcry Explosion Corpses build, which skyrocketed the price of Impossible Escape for Eternal Youth. I got one for this slot for 10 chaos on day 3 or 4 of the league, something. I just kept it rot on my stash until 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday. I'm not sure, but until earlier, where I was bombarded with pings offering 1 divine, 3 divine, 5 divine, 7 divine for it, and I go to the market and check. It was 15 divine at that time, maybe even more now. So Assassins for General's Cry is really bad. So if you want to play Assassins with Marohi Erqi, the only viable option for you, I think, is Cyclone and Shockwave. And I did play a whole bunch of Cyclone and Shockwave already, so yeah, I would prefer to do something more interesting like Vaal Earthquake. Hence, the best choice for going crit with this build is Slayer. There's no doubt about that. Slayer, we have the not reflected, no reflect physical damage taken, which is nice. If we stay as physical, the charge node is also quite nice, because we don't need to go heavily into the right side, into the left side of the tree. What's wrong with me? Yeah, we don't need to heavily go to this side, because we don't need result technique, right? We can go here, we can stack a bunch of frenzy charge and even power charge, right? We can get suppression, we can get the crits, a lot of things on this side of the tree. So this node convert the maximum frenzy charge to endurance, which give us a lot of defensive perks, right? Because again, we are a very heavy, unique, reliant build, and we rely on it to cap our resistance as well as the elemental and chaos resistant, and also the physical mitigation. Because you don't, even though you are playing a high damage build, I don't think it feels nice to just die all the time. The whole point of me making this build is because my previous builds this league dies all the time. I have not played the Chieftain Fulcrum thing. I had a Fulcrum at one point when it was 4 divine. I sold it at the point where it was 13 divine, but it's much earlier but since it became a meta to MF, I refuse to play the MF meta. I think it will ruin me. I will not be excited for any kind of drop in the game anymore. So yeah, I refuse to do that. I instead just normal mapping. So yeah, long story short, this character is very, very tanky. That is the whole point of the character. If you enjoy the same kind of feel when you play a character, where you are decently fast, you are not like blow ups everything at once in a huge AoE multiple screen away. You want to be close, you want to be impactful, you want to be very tanky, you can take almost anything in a game and not dying. This is the build for you. outro. Finally, we reach this point. I am not even sure how long have I recorded this video for, but it also take a bunch of time to put together. I'm not sure how helpful it will be for you. However, I do sincerely hope that this is helpful for some people, especially new people that just recently know about and come to learn PoE. Melee is a very classic archetype in any ARPG or RPG game. So yeah, I enjoy this build. I enjoy this build a lot. It's a change of pace for me to be extremely tanky and just blasting through maps with ease, without any worry, without even like needing to use both of my hands, right? So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. If you find this content helpful for you, or if you want me to make further content like this for other builds, please leave a like and subscribe. This league has been the best league ever for my own liking. In my opinion, this is the best league ever because even though I hate MF, but the juicy level of loot in this league is for everyone, not just for MF, because MF basically raised the price of everything. They need a lot of things, like even fucking chisel is very expensive this league compared to normally how it is. So you can basically play the game, any kind of content, it just matter how much you play, and you will eventually have enough money to afford almost everything in the game. For me, this is also the very first time I am able to afford a Mageblood. Before I had a Headhunter long time ago. After that, I do not play like seriously. I just casually play every league, but never like care about making a lot of currency. I just blow currency on just new ideas. That is how I like to play the game. I like to try new interaction, new build idea, new skills, new items, try to make the things that people think that is very bad and to prove it's actually viable. That is my thing. That is my fun in PoE, and I think you will have fun in PoE if you are new to the game. This is the best time. Diablo is bad, D4 bad, so why not PoE? PoE 1 is good. You don't need to wait for PoE 2, even though it might seem very intimidating for new players. It's not that hard to start if you follow a guide at the start. It is very recommended. If you don't believe me, check out DM Darth Microtransaction. He is quite a big Diablo streamer. He's recently converted. I think it's converted to PoE, and for a reason that is just better. Especially if you want to put a lot of time in the game, PoE is the best game for you. Alright, again, selling out here. Please help me out, like and subscribe, and maybe share this content to your friends or everything of that sort. And I don't want to do that too much. So thanks again, everybody. Anyone that somehow by some miracle stay with me until the end of this video, very long ass video, which take a huge amount of time to make, but I have a lot of fun making the video, playing the build. Everything's good. The community is very extremely supportive for new player, and even in my personal story here, they're very supportive for someone who just started the content creation thing like I do right now. I have the chance to talk to some of the PoE streamers just by chance. I don't know anyone, but just by chance they talk with me because they buy an item from me. I asked, we talk a little bit, and then I know, oh, you are fucking big streamer, and very nice. Everyone is really nice, very supportive, especially for new player. If you come as a new player, you ask anything, almost everyone, I guarantee you, will be willing to help, unless they have like a language barrier or something. For example, if you ask a Chinese Korean guy something in English, they might not be able to answer if they don't know English. But that's not the case for most of the situation. If you're new, come to POE. We are welcoming you. I've played POE for 12 years. I'm still enjoying it. This is the best time ever. Right, thank you. Finally, I can find the stop recording button. Peace.